Hello, friends. Today, I want to talk to you about fat. We're going to delve into a topic you perhaps not only didn't fully know, but may not have even heard or guessed about. This will be incredibly useful information for developing a sober, intelligent attitude towards excess weight, to understand where it truly comes from, how to approach it, and in what cases the fight against it is more complex than we're led to believe. The information I'm about to share will be radically different from what you're used to hearing. So I invite you to open your mind, and let's begin. Very often, especially on social media, I see a simplistic and often cruel narrative. You see someone, perhaps a novice fitness trainer, criticizing another person's body. They'll say, "Just go lose weight," with an air of moral superiority. But the reality of our biology is infinitely more complex. Remember, friends, a person's appearance is not always a reflection of their effort or their character. The prevailing idea that being overweight is simply a disease of laziness, a failure of willpower, is deeply ingrained in our culture. I've seen it in countless interviews and discussions. The solution is always work more, eat less. I once hosted a discussion with a brilliant nutritionist who gave a very nuanced answer to this question, and the backlash he received was intense. It was then I realized there is a massive gap in public knowledge, a void that I feel a duty to help fill. First, let's redefine what fat even is. In the popular imagination, a fat cell is just a passive container, a biological gas tank where we store triglycerides. But this couldn't be further from the truth. If you look at the anatomy of adipose tissue, you'll see it's a remarkably complex and active system. A single fat unit isn't just a cell. It's an intricate network of arterial, venous, and lymphatic vessels, all weaving together to form a highly sophisticated mechanism. To give you a sense of its power, I'll start with this one staggering fact. A single fat cell, in response to external signals, can secrete up to 100 different types of signaling molecules. 100. If I were to ask most people, even those in the fitness industry, to name 5 of them, they would likely struggle. These molecules are called adipokines, and they are the messengers through which your fat tissue communicates with your entire body. Some of them control anti-tumor immunity. Others regulate your appetite. A third group manages glucose uptake and insulin sensitivity. A fourth orchestrates the cellular immune response. Your fat tissue is constantly sending out a torrent of information that profoundly affects every system you have. So, let's discard the notion that fat is just a depot for nutrients. That is not true. It is a powerful, active endocrine organ. This understanding must be the new foundation in your mind. The second crucial thing is to understand the different types of fat, because where it's located tells a story about your health. There are 3 primary classifications based on location. First, there's the one we all know, subcutaneous fat. This is the fat directly under your skin, the kind you can pinch. These are the folds on the stomach or the fat on your hips. While aesthetically it might be what people dislike, it's generally the least metabolically harmful. The second type is visceral fat. This is where the real danger lies. Visceral obesity is what we often see in what's sometimes called a hormonal belly in men. A man might come in, and his stomach protrudes, but it's hard and firm. If you try to pinch the subcutaneous layer, there's not much there. That's because the fat is growing from the inside, encasing the internal organs. When I perform surgery on patients with high levels of visceral fat, the procedure becomes incredibly challenging. There's very little space to work, and everything is enveloped in a thick layer of this fat. The intestines have fatty deposits on them. The omentum, which is like a fatty apron hanging from the stomach to cover the intestines, is massively enlarged. Our kidneys, where I often operate, are normally nestled in a protective fatty cocoon, but in these cases, it's excessive. This internal fat is metabolically disastrous because it's in direct contact with your vital organs. The third type, which we often see in people who are metabolically unhealthy, is called ectopic fat. Ectopic means in the wrong place. Let's take a person with severe obesity and perform an ultrasound. We would very likely see fat infiltrating their liver, a condition known as fatty liver disease. We might also see the degeneration of muscle fibers, with fatty inclusions appearing within the muscle itself. This is a hallmark of a metabolically broken system. Ectopic fat is your body's last resort for storage, shoving fat into organs that were never designed to hold it, causing them to malfunction. So remember these three: subcutaneous, visceral, and ectopic. Now, beyond location, the fat cells themselves are not all the same. We can divide them into three distinct types, each with a different function. The fat that most people think of as ugly is called white fat. This is your primary storage fat. It's designed to be an energy reserve. A white fat cell is essentially one large droplet of lipid with very few mitochondria. Its main job is to store energy, not to burn it. Then we have the so-called brown fat. This is the fat that warms us up. Brown fat is a metabolic furnace. We associate it with babies. They have a higher proportion of it, which is why they tolerate cold temperatures so well and have better survival rates in cold conditions. Unlike white fat, brown fat is packed with iron-rich mitochondria, which is what gives it its distinct brown color. These mitochondria don't just produce energy. They produce heat, a process called thermogenesis. In adults, brown fat is found in specific areas like around large blood vessels and in the interscapular region between the shoulder blades. This is why your armpits, for instance, rarely feel icy cold. And finally, there is a fascinating third type, a kind of in-between fat that represents hope and change. It's called beige fat. What is beige fat? It's fat that was once white but, through the right stimuli, has started to behave more like brown fat. This transformation, often called browning, happens when a person engages in activities like regular, intense exercise or cold exposure. The structure of the cell changes. The single large lipid droplet breaks up into smaller ones, and the number of mitochondria increases. The cell becomes more metabolically active, more capable of burning energy rather than just storing it. This is a physiological sign of a body becoming healthier. However, it's not always so simple. A prime example that shatters the fat equals lazy myth can be seen in many professional combat athletes, like UFC fighters and heavyweight boxers. You can watch a man go 12 grueling rounds in a professional boxing match, an incredible feat of endurance and strength, and yet he might carry a visible layer of body fat. His intense physical activity and rigorous training camps don't necessarily make him lean. This proves that when a person loses, gains, or maintains weight, it's not just a simple equation of calories in versus calories out. There are countless factors at play: endocrinology, genetics, neurology, and more. So, if anyone, especially a coach, tells you it's a simple matter of willpower, they are either uneducated or willfully ignorant. It's a sign to seek guidance elsewhere. Another critical point that is often misunderstood is how we gain fat. Many believe that we are born with a set number of fat cells, and they just get bigger or smaller. This is not true. The total number of fat cells, or adipocytes, can indeed increase. Your body can create new ones. Obesity occurs not just through hypertrophy, which is an increase in the size of existing cells, but also through hyperplasia, which is the creation of new cells. There are precursor cells called preadipocytes that surround your existing fat cells. Under the influence of negative external factors, a poor endocrine environment with bad hormones, chronic overeating, a sedentary lifestyle, these precursor cells are stimulated to proliferate. They mature into full-fledged adipocytes, creating new permanent storage sites for fat. And these adipocytes are incredibly long-lived and renew very slowly. Only about 10% of your fat cells are renewed each year. The average lifespan of a single adipocyte is about 10 years. Think about that for a moment. This means that the fat deposits on your lower back might literally be the remnants of meals you ate a decade ago. That burger you had on a weekend in 2015 could still be, in a very real sense, a part of you today. The renewal is slow, only 10% per year, meaning it takes a full decade for a complete turnover. There's another sinister feature of adipocytes. When they become too large through hypertrophy, their health deteriorates. The cell has grown so massive that its blood supply can't keep up, and it becomes starved of oxygen. In this state of distress, it begins to release pro-inflammatory factors into your bloodstream. This is why people with a lot of excess fat are in a state of chronic low-grade inflammation. This systemic inflammation contributes to joint pain, accelerates atherosclerosis, the hardening of arteries, and disrupts the function of many hormones, including sex hormones. A leaner person is often a healthier person precisely because they are not living in this constant inflammatory state. But now, for the most important nuance, what if a person isn't naturally thin? We see this with the professional fighters I mentioned. This brings us to the concept of a comfortable genetic weight or a set point. A huge body of research has proven that our bodies have a weight range they consider normal and will actively defend. For some people, that comfortable weight might be 100 kilograms. All those generic height-to-weight formulas are often inaccurate and fail to account for individual biology. A person might be naturally heavy-set. If I weigh 110 kilograms and that's my body's set point, any effort I make to dry out and get down to, say, 100 kilograms will be met with fierce resistance from my body. Why? Because it perceives this weight loss as a threat to survival. In response, my hormonal system will wage war. My appetite will skyrocket, and my metabolism will slow down to conserve energy. Conversely, if I gain weight and go up to 120 or 130 kilograms, my body will try to correct that too. My appetite may weaken, and my energy expenditure may increase as my body desperately tries to return me to my comfortable weight. For most people, this comfortable set point is often around the weight they naturally maintained in their early 20s, a weight sustained through a reasonably healthy lifestyle. Anything that sticks later on is often a result of lifestyle choices overriding this natural balance. How is this set point formed? First and foremost, it's influenced by your genetics. A father with a certain body composition is more likely to have a son with a similar one. Fat distribution patterns also run in families. You might notice that your dad has a belly, your mom carries weight on her hips, and you or your siblings deposit fat in those same places. Secondly, it's shaped by what happens in the womb. If a mother experiences significant stress while pregnant, continuing a high-pressure job late into the pregnancy, for instance, the stress hormones flooding her system can affect the developing child. This increases the chances that the child will have problems with excess weight later in life. And thirdly, a child's nutrition in the first few years of life is critically important. The window to establish a healthy metabolic foundation is formed by ages 3 to 5. The predispositions laid down in these early years can manifest during puberty and throughout adult life. Therefore, it is critically important to understand that the person sitting in front of you might not be overweight because they are lazy, but because they are dealing with a biological reality shaped by decades of factors, some of which were determined before they were even born. The primary goal should always be health, not satisfying the fleeting beauty standards of society. Today's standard might be thin, tomorrow's might be different. Everyone has their own healthy, comfortable weight. Judging someone because they are different from you is unproductive and unenlightened. Let's discuss the tools we use to measure this. In many clinics and gyms, you'll find a bioimpedance scale. You stand on it, hold sensors, and it gives you a body fat percentage. While common, these devices can be highly inaccurate. Your hydration level alone can massively distort the results. If you have swelling or are retaining water, the reading will be off. True, precise impedensimetry is done by full immersion in water, a method used in research settings. The consumer-grade devices in gyms have a large margin of error. A better, more practical way is to use a tape measure and a camera. If you're building muscle, measure your arm, thigh, or waist. Take photos. These provide real, tangible evidence of changes in your body composition. People often come to me with an abstract goal like, I want to lose 5 kilograms. My question is always, do you want to lose 5 kilograms? Or do you have an image in your head of how you want to look, and you've just attached that number to it? Often, I can see that they don't need to lose 5 kilograms. They might need to gain 5 kilograms of muscle to achieve the look they desire. If they just lose weight, they might look worse, feel unhappy, and think they need to lose even more. How many times have we seen someone gain weight and look better, or lose weight and look worse? It happens when they fight their body to an unhealthy, uncomfortable weight. The most important thing is to determine if a person has primary obesity, caused by lifestyle, or secondary obesity, which has an underlying endocrinological cause. It is deeply irresponsible to just push someone with a hormonal problem into the gym without a proper health check. It will be counterproductive at best and destructive at worst. If a person has a significant amount of excess weight, say more than 10% above their healthy range, and gains it easily, there might be an underlying endocrine issue that needs to be addressed. So why does obesity even exist if nature is so smart? In our evolutionary past, a predisposition to gain weight wasn't a flaw. It was a survival advantage. It meant a person could endure periods of famine. But now, in a world of constant food availability and low physical activity, this survival trait has become a liability. For the first time in human history, the number of people in the world suffering from obesity has surpassed the number of people suffering from starvation. Excess weight today has far more disadvantages than advantages. Ultimately, my stance is against a distorted view of self-love that ignores health. You can and should love yourself as a person, but if you have a condition that dramatically increases your risk of numerous diseases, it seems to me that blaming genetics is only part of the story. A strong person takes that knowledge into their own hands and improves their health through diet, exercise, and good habits. Body positivity is a wonderful concept when it's about accepting things we cannot change, a birthmark, a physical disability. But when it's used as an excuse to ignore a changeable and dangerous health condition, it becomes a form of disrespect to oneself. It's about not caring for the only body you will ever have. And that is a conversation we must be brave enough to have.